April the 9th, 2026. Guys, we've got information coming in from Iran and mostly dealing with Hezbollah and being just on the northern border there in Lebanon. And it's been some of the heaviest bombing that I've seen during this entire campaign. The Israeli jets hitting large buildings in huge, sections of the city there. And I think they put about 100 missiles in there this morning. And the last report I heard was about 188 people hurt, killed, and wounded. I don't have the exact breakdown of that. But the explosions, guys, and I think it happened kind of early in the morning. It was already daylight. But these bombs were just blowing like 10-story high-rises into dust. And so what has happened is they've been going at it. Israel has been going after Hezbollah in Lebanon forever. And so what they're doing is trying to force Hezbollah and a lot of the Lebanese across that river there. And that would give them a buffer zone against the Hezbollah rockets. Hezbollah I think they waited one day, guys, after Trump and them said we're going to have a ceasefire for, 2 weeks now. Anyway, they waited one day, but Israel didn't back off. And the reason they're saying they did that is because Hezbollah in Lebanon was not part of the Iranian peace deal. And so they're going back and forth, and I tried to find out if there was a written record of that agreement. And from what I found out, there was not. It was a spoken agreement. But since it was spoken, I don't know if it was recorded, both sides are disagreeing on it. Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon are saying that Lebanon was a part of that peace deal. Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are saying no, it wasn't. And J.D. Vance is saying no, it wasn't. It was Iran, the nation of Iran, and to stop that attack there. But guys, you got to remember, the strongest army that Iran has is the Lebanese Hezbollah. That's their strongest arm of all their military they send out. You got the Houthis, you got Hezbollah, all of that. But Hezbollah is the main point. So they got a battle going on between Iranian strong arm and Israel. And so they're saying it's a separate battle, but what they're doing, if you think about it, by Iran complaining about it, they're admitting that Hezbollah is their main proxy, their main strong army. And so they are being as deceitful as anybody else. If the U.S. and Israel is saying no, they were not included, Iran is saying they were, then Iran is basically saying, yeah, and we're going to keep fighting Israel. You see what I'm saying? And we know that now some of the Houthis have sent some missiles from south of Saudi Arabia, but mostly it's kind of right in the Lebanese northern Israel border area. Now they're talking about possibly a full-scale invasion. I saw, again, the images of these huge explosions in broad daylight. I also saw tanks on the ground in Lebanon and firing tanks. And so it could be a full-schedule ground invasion. Again, they're saying to create a buffer zone to where Hezbollah, I guess, cannot shoot the short-range missiles from that area. That goes back to the Albert Pike letter, guys, and the burden of the world put in place after World War II to continue the conflict. Satan loves that. Rome loves it. But they're saying that on April 7th, remember, the U.S. and Iran agreed to a 2-week truce to halt their direct conflict. However, Benjamin Netanyahu explicitly stated that Lebanon and Hezbollah are excluded from that deal, vowing to continue pounding the group until its military threat is eliminated. And again, Hezbollah has been the main military threat to Israel, regardless of what side or what ideology you're following here. They have been attacking each other since 47, 48, one way or the other. Again, they're trying to establish this buffer zone. The Israeli officials have stated their objective is to take control of areas south of the Litani River, roughly 20 miles north of the border, to protect northern Israeli communities. Reports suggest Israel may intend to create a de facto no man's land by destroying border villages, preventing the return of displaced Lebanese residents or the residents indefinitely. And then they're thinking if the residents come back into there, then they would be infiltrated by Hezbollah just like it has been the whole time. And it's, again, Israel is attacking the people attacking them that's attacking them back. And it's going to be continued like that. But there's a problem now. Other nations are starting to look at this situation because of the civilian casualties, especially with the 100 rockets. I think it was in less than an hour that was pounding broad daylight. I'm talking about, you wouldn't believe some of the images. But anyway, what's going to happen is when all this section of the war started a few months ago with the closing of the straits, we started talking about Gog and Magog. Remember that? And so as we see Trump trying to make a peace deal with Iran and Israel, and more or less saying we're going to stick around, we hope this can be solved, we all can go back to making some money and get the oil back down, which it did go down today. Anyway, but this conflict with Israel and Lebanon is going to be the hook if we're not very careful. We know that many nations are going to be without oil if they don't hurry up and open up the straits. But this conflict will bring other nations. Already, for the first time, Saudi Arabia and Iran are talking. They never did that. But now they are. Other nations are paying attention. Will this bring about a gathering of the nations? Because we were kind of hoping for, we knew that it could happen very quickly. And what we were hoping for is maybe not yet. Maybe some people will come to their senses and back up a little bit and look around. But some people don't want that. And that goes again back to the Albert Pike letter. The reason for Israel being put there was to be that thorn in the side of the Middle East, of that ideology. They knew it would create conflict everlasting up until the Gog-Magog conflict and beyond. I've got an update coming in from Lebanon, and I said that it was a 30-minute blitz or less than an hour. They're saying that there's mass casualties. Over 300 people were killed in a single 10-minute blitz on April 8th. And remember, we're in different time zones by about 5.5 hours, but bringing the death toll of the current campaign to more than 1,700. More than 1 million Lebanese civilians, roughly 15% of the country, have been displaced by evacuation orders and airstrikes. The economic strain is that the conflict is pushing the already fragile Lebanese state towards total collapse, guys. And that, again, it's war. But they are, I guess, I don't know that much about Hezbollah in Lebanon as far as, great details, but they must be hiding out amongst a lot of civilians. But I will say this, in the reports that I read this morning, there were a lot of Christians in Lebanon losing their lives. And that kind of seems to be something going on constantly. Because remember I told you about the Christians in Israel being attacked, and they were a very high percentage back in the 40s, and now they're down to around 1-something%. You understand what I'm saying? They took over the religion that Christ had brought, that he came and clarified. They took that over, and they manipulated it into this point of war. That goes to Rome, it goes to Constantine, guys, it goes far back. I'm not going to go into detail right now. I do have a video talking about it, but I haven't released it yet. I want to fine-tune it. But anyway, we're dealing with a long process over a long period of time coming to this point. The name or this particular group of troops, the Iranian proxies, Hezbollah, was established in the early 80s with the direct assistance of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, which provided initial training and ideological indoctrination. Massive financial support. Iran remains its primary benefactor, providing hundreds of millions of dollars annually. And I doubt that continues very long. Anyway, estimated between 700 million and 1.2 billion as of 2026. In 2016, former leader Hassan Nasrallah explicitly stated that the group's entire budget comes directly from the Islamic Republic. The vast majority of Hezbollah's arsenal, including its rockets, drones, and precision-guided missiles, is supplied by Iran or built using Iranian technology. Analysts and military officials have even described Hezbollah as effectively a special force brigade of the Iranian army. Every army has special forces, and both on the field and behind the computers. Headlines this morning, guys, you can type and check out that some U.S. People are saying that Iran is using some major hacking activity into certain parts of U.S. infrastructure as we speak. Now, my question would be, where were they trained? Because that's been going on here with many nations for a very long time, guys. And I always thought that was a little bit strange, especially with China. But it's happened with other people. Iran has been involved with U.S. training of this thing. Now they're hacking us. Now, Hezbollah frequently acts on Iran's behest, such as deploying thousands of fighters to support the Assad regime in Syria, or training other Iranian-backed groups in Iraq and Yemen, the Houthis. Despite this connection, Hezbollah maintains a complex dual identity. Of course they do. They speak out of both sides of their mouth. It is also a significant Lebanese political party and social service provider. That's how they come in and take over, like Mandami in New York, sometimes attempting to balance its obligations to Iran with its need for domestic legitimacy in Lebanon. And what I think is happening right now, and I saw some of the reporters talking to the Lebanese people right after that bombing, is they're pretty much sick of both Hezbollah and Israel. They just some of them just want to live in peace. But again, they've been infiltrated by Iran. Now they're talking about the key details of what Hezbollah is doing now. They're saying retaliatory rocket barrages. Hezbollah launched dozens of rockets into northern Israel on April the 9th, specifically targeting areas like Kiryat Shimona and Manara. The group characterized these as a direct response to what it calls ceasefire violations by Israel. But again, no written agreement that we know of, or they would have brought it up, and no mention of Hezbollah in Lebanon, according to the U.S. and Israel. The other side, it's kind of like, you try to be fair, but the other side reminds me of the Democrats, just the mental thing. Anyway, the group's latest attack followed Israel's massive April 8th blitz, which continued today, during which the IDF hit 100 targets in 10 minutes. Hezbollah fighters were seen on video on the Times of India, if you're looking it up, loading launchers to target Israeli troop concentrations because they are moving in on the ground. Much of Hezbollah's daily fire is currently aimed at Israeli ground forces operating within the security zone in southern Lebanon, though long-range projectiles and drones continue to cross into Israeli territory. And guys, when you start getting up into Lebanon, there's ancient places like Baalbek, the original Anunnaki landing zone. But again, they are right now fighting a ground war. As far as Hezbollah, they have small rockets. They have what Israel's given them. And when you talk about, when Iran has given them, when you talk about that, you've got to include Russia and other people that work with Iran. But again, this ground war is ongoing, And that could be the trigger point, because again, tanks are rolling in, crushing buildings, planes and rockets are hitting out in front of that, and it looks pretty indiscriminate. And the IDF is warning that Hezbollah may expand its fire to additional areas in central Israel in the coming days as the conflict intensifies. And if I was in Lebanon, I'd be going north. I'd be going somewhere else, because they're getting hit hard. They're not going to make it through this without outside help. We don't know where that would come from or what it would look like, but they're in pretty bad straits right now, and they're right on that northern border. Now, like I said, the U.S. is saying Lebanon was not part of the deal, and I heard J.D. Vance say it in a video this morning from the plane was somewhere. I'm not sure where it was at. But Iran and Pakistan, because it was brokered by Pakistan, this peace deal. Pakistan, the primary mediator of the truce, explicitly announced that the agreement covers hostilities anywhere, including Lebanon. Iran's leadership has backed this interpretation. Of course they would, warning that continued Israeli strikes on Lebanon constitute a flagrant violation that could cause the entire deal to collapse. I think both Iran and Israel are loving this war. They care not much about the people. It's a political ideology and military, and all of that involves money. And what I'm understanding, guys, is Iran is telling Hezbollah not to stop its attacks. It is supporting their decision to continue fighting as long as Israel's offensive is in Lebanon, and as long as that persists. The official Iranian position is that the regional ceasefire must include Lebanon, and the view continued the Israeli strikes as a violation of the truth. Now, you got to think about it on both sides. Would you want Iranian proxy army on your border? We may have a couple of those. We don't know. After 4 years of Mayorkas, we don't know what we got down there. I'm sure our military is in a lot better shape than they were then, and so is our surveillance of the border areas. But you wouldn't want it unless they were peaceful. And it seems like that peace is always being stirred in a pot. I can just imagine a few of those guys sitting up there in that synagogue of Satan, keeping it stirred. Now, I haven't looked in the last several hours at the stock markets, guys, but we had come back down. I mean, $90-something gas sounds terrible per barrel, but it was at 116, 117 just a few days ago. But they're talking about the breaking point for the peace deal. The proxy war dynamic is the reason of April 7th ceasefire is already on the verge of collapsing. You got the mutual accusations, guys. Israel saying one thing with the U.S., Hezbollah, Iran saying another one. Iran has explicitly stated that if Israel doesn't stop hitting Hezbollah, Iran will consider the U.S. deal void. Well, good luck with that. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has shifted the goalposts, stating on April 9th that any permanent deal must now include the total disarmament of Hezbollah, a demand Iran is extremely unlikely to accept, as it would mean losing its most powerful regional weapon. That's kind of the point of the war, Iran, is to stop you from doing all the crap you do. Again, it's like two children playing, guys. Very small children. And the Old Testament told us babes would rule in the end times. But it is, again, they're pushing us to a conflict. And everybody had some high hopes, watching gas go down in the last couple of days and things like that. But when you got the devil involved and you got those three spirits going forth to the kings of the earth to draw them to this battle, it's coming down as it was written, because it was planned this way. So what we have to do is be prepared for it, know when to duck, know when to dodge, the whole 9 yards, like they used to say, shoot, move, and communicate. Remember that? I'm not talking about technically, but you got to have your head on a swivel if this thing goes worldwide, because then you will see enough conflicts in the big cities, which they're already trying to do, right? Look at all the current No Kings protest and every other protest you can think of. They can come up with, they're doing. And if they can get enough conflict within the cities, it will destabilize everything. There won't be enough troops or other people to come in there to stop it. And so we're kind of right on this balancing edge of how many idiots does it take to bring down a nation, especially when you have help from Republican rhinos. And as I mentioned, the current escalation in Lebanon is already pushing several nations to take firmer stances alongside or against Israel, making the risk of a wider regional conflict, often termed a final battle, in ideological rhetoric the highest it has been in decades. The Iran-Hezbollah unified front. Iran has warned that if Israel's ground offensive continues, it will deliver a regret-inducing response. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has signaled it might withdraw from the U.S.-Iran ceasefire entirely. Guys, again, good luck with that. How's that working out for you? You're the one getting the break. Anyways, you can't help stupid. But again, they're signaling they would withdraw from the agreement, which really isn't an agreement. It hasn't been signed. We have not seen a copy of it. And it's probably just allow both sides a little bit of space to rearm. But on the European shift, key European nations are increasingly distancing themselves from Israel's military objectives. And I remember some of you guys may have seen this about a month or two ago, right as that conflict was getting started. Trump said, now Israel's plan is a little different than ours. We want to get in, get out. He said, but they're looking to blow everything up so it takes the enemy at least 10 years to rebuild it. That'll keep them busy for a while. It wasn't verbatim, but very close to what he said. And that kind of appears to what it looks like. Now, except for this buffer zone, because it looks like they're going to clean this out or attempt to. This could bring a lot of European pressure on them. But clean this Lebanese buffer zone out and go from there. We'll just have to see. But despite the international outcry over the civilian death toll, the Trump administration has defended Israel's action as a separate skirmish. It's a separate nation, but it's still an Iranian-Israeli skirmish. This perceived lockstep alliance increases the risk that Iranian retaliation could target U.S. assets, further drawing global powers into the fray. There's one of the reasons I wanted to do the video, guys, because, you know, we've all heard peace, peace. You'll hear that, and sudden destruction. And so that's telling us, as you got a bunch of giant, overgrown kids running the world, it's not going to be stable, because they all have a different idea of what they think stable is. Now, guys, again, Israel's objectives are a little different. Israel has framed its current invasion as a fundamental change to the regional order, a new Israeli order. The Gaza model in Lebanon, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz have explicitly stated they intend to replicate the destruction of border infrastructure seen in Gaza to create a permanent no man's land up to 8 kilometers deep into Lebanon. I guess that's very close to that river. Disarmament as a non-negotiable. In other words, Israel's not going to stop as long as Hezbollah is armed and have the ability to attack their northern borders. And I bet you it won't be long before they'll be moving probably Christian, not Jewish, Christian citizens into those more dangerous buffer zones. They did it already, guys. They did it in Gaza. They did it in the West Bank. And so it's kind of non-negotiable on both sides. For Iran, Hezbollah is the most vital strategic deterrent it has. Its total destruction would likely be seen as an existential threat to the Iranian regime itself, potentially forcing a direct state-on-state confrontation. Guys, again, Iran, not talking to the people, the leaders, where have you been for a couple months? That's the point of the war, to end your military capabilities. Whether right or wrong, that's the point of the war. And you're sitting over here playing ping pong across the Straits of Hormuz and still not letting anybody by. and you're asking for all hell to break loose on you. Now, what's going to happen is we're going to see more people come into the conflict. We may see some move out of it before all of this goes down. But something is about to happen in that area, because if it doesn't and the straits don't open up, it's going to be worldwide chaos economically. And economic chaos leads to every other kind of chaos you can imagine before it's all said and done. When people get hungry, things change. And guys, they're going back to the Islamabad Accord, they called it a few days ago, and because they're going to try to renegotiate that in the next couple of days. Again, we'll just have to see how this works out. What we're seeing from a lot of the war hawks here is that no one believes anything Iran is saying. Not one word. It's all a delay, and that's how the regime has survived for all these years. But just as you're hoping, things are going to get better. We're going to pull our troops back out. Gas is going to go down. Certain factions are not going to allow that to happen. And it would have been nice if Israel and Lebanon could have backed off each other for a few days and let the smoke clear a little bit. But again, what Israel is thinking, and they could be correct, is that was only allowing for Iran to push more of its people into Lebanon, on Israel's northern border. And every day is a wasted time if you're doing that. In other words, they're going to continue the onslaught until the peace deal they want, which is complete disarmament. Until that happens, or again, all hell breaks loose. Now, as of today, northern Israel has 80,000 displaced Israelis from their home in the northern sections there. The government views the security zone up to the Litani River as the only physical way to ensure their safety. So 80,000 now. It would be interesting, and one of you guys may want to search that out. Out of these 80,000 displaced Israelis, how many are Christians? That's kind of how they work there. But today, Netanyahu surprisingly ordered his cabinet to open direct negotiations with the Lebanese government aimed at a permanent peace treaty and the disarmament of Hezbollah. So it's a no-no on both sides right now. Will it take the continued pounding from Israel and possibly from the U.S. into Iran? I don't know. I don't know about the U.S. response as of what we're seeing in Lebanon today. I haven't heard much about that. And so tonight's going to be very interesting. Again, they're going back to the Islamabad Accord to see if they can continue some ceasefire. But I said this earlier, many people are saying these are delay tactics to rebuild the military back up. Now, just to end this, I want to talk about the Albert Pike letter just a little bit. Now, I understand the history of it and what is said. It is and it isn't. But it describes a world where people become disillusioned with Christianity. Remember, they turn to the Luciferian doctrine. And other faiths because they are anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render adoration. This goes all the way back to the Roman Rhino, Constantine, all of that bunch. Because when the truth hits everyone and they realize that they were disillusioned in their Christianity by modern day preachers and the lies that are taught there that came from the manipulation out of Rome, then there will be a great exhaustion of faith. As the war between Israel and Hezbollah intensifies, many religious leaders are struggling to provide answers. The bombardment of historic sites such as the 19th century Greek Catholic Church and Dergaya and various mosques has fueled a sense of despair and exhaustion among local populations. And you've got, again, the divide between the American Christian Zionists, which I guess that's a real term. Anyway, they're saying one thing. But then you got the other higher-ranking religious people in Europe, which is Pope Leo and Cardinal Cupid, have called the violence sickening, creating a visible rift within the faith. That was the plan to begin with. They could not have the true Christian faith take over. That's why Stephen was killed, because he was going to take it over. They had to replace him. Those things will come to light one day, guys, and a lot of you understand them. A lot of you just, you don't quite get it yet. But that, you think the delusions have just now started? Or did they start the moment that Satan put his foot down on this planet to begin with? That's how long it's going. It's a long game they're playing, and we are seeing it. So it's time to wake up. I may have to do a couple more Bible videos before too long. Anyway, guys, 30 minutes in, we're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.